I don't like Valentine's Day. Not because I have any problem with the occasion itself, but because of an experience I had in the past. I was 18 back then, and I was dating this girl, Georgia. She was very immature and beautiful girl, but she was into gothic stuff. I did not pay much attention to it, thinking it must be because of her age or something. You know how teenagers try to define their personality by showing it by how they look. She always wore black clothes, had several tattoos over her body, and always had this one weird black book in her which she never let anyone touch. We were in a soccer team, and my friends placed a bet that whichever one of us loses that practice match, the striker had to date the weird goth girl in our school. Unfair, right? But that's just how teenagers are. And I happened to be the striker who lost the goal, so that's how I ended up asking her out, and we started dating shortly after that. At first, I thought she was a bit creepy, but as time went by, I started to like her. The Valentine's Day was just around the corner, and I wanted to do something special for her, so I asked her what she wants. She told me that she would love if I could go over at her house to celebrate the Valentine's Day with her, so I agreed. On the Valentine's Day, I brought dark chocolates and black roses for her. I knew she would like them because of her intense love for the color black. She also had asked me to wear black attire, so I did as she said. After that, I went to the address she gave me. I had never been to her house before, so I never knew where she lived before that. As I went inside, I noticed that everything was black. The only night bulbs were on, so I thought she must be planning something romantic for me. But soon after, I was shocked to see that her entire family was there, and they were all wearing the same dark clothing. I thought this was supposed to be a date. Why are your parents here? I asked her, without letting anyone know about my nervousness. But Georgia gave me another surprise by saying that she wanted me to meet her parents before we take this to the next level. I got a bit nervous, but it also made me happy that she thought like that. Still, it was supposed to be the two of us, so I was feeling down. She said they will be gone after they are done with me. It felt a bit weird, but I was looking forward to spending some alone time with her. Her parents asked me some questions, and I answered them. They looked like they were satisfied with my answers, but then they told me to wait in the dining room because they had one final test for me. The dining room was huge. It had multiple tables with weird-looking candles, trays, and plates were weird-looking. And the most creepy and weird thing about the place was the rusty metallic blood-like stench. I started to feel goosebumps from that. There was no one in the room except for me, so I had this sudden urge to find out more about the place. I sneaked through the lane-looking hall and went near the room where the stench was the strongest. As I was about to open it, Georgia came and asked me what I was doing there. I was looking for the bathroom, I said to her, and she told me that there was a bathroom near the dining hall and took me there. After I came out from the bathroom, Georgia gave me something to drink which looked like orange juice, so I drank it. But as soon as I drank the juice, I started to feel dizzy. After that, I just passed out. When I woke up, I was tied over the dining table and there were multiple knives placed around me. The setting looked like there were going to be a huge feast, and I guess I must be the main course. I was still alone in the room, and I could hear faint voices coming from outside where they were trying to discuss who will be eating which organ of my body. I had started to feel the terrifying sensation taking over my body, and I felt like I would pass out from the extreme fear I was experiencing at the moment. I struggled and struggled to get free from the ropes, but it was too tight, so I could not. Soon after, I heard some footsteps coming over to my direction, and as I looked up, I saw Georgia and her mother holding knives in their hands. I clenched my eyes so that the pain would be bearable. But as I did not feel anything, I opened my eyes. "It was a prank, you dummy," Georgia said while laughing, while giving a high five to her brother and mom. They were thinking of it as the funniest prank they had ever pulled, but I was not feeling like that. I was still terrified because I could still smell the stench of blood coming from each direction. I tried faking my laughter, but I couldn't. All I was thinking about was that I had to leave this place as soon as possible. "You scared the shit out of me, Georgia," I said. while giving the most fake and awkward laugh to Georgia. I asked her if I could leave, and surprisingly, she let me go. I left as fast as I could, and after exiting from her house, trust me, I had started to run. I threw up as long as I reached the next lane from her house. The next day, I broke up with Georgia because of an extreme trauma from that experience, which resulted in me experiencing series of nightmares about it. I think it wasn't a prank. They must have changed their mind about eating me. And even if it was a prank, it was the most terrible and cruel prank that anyone had ever pulled. Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
No movie will ever compare to the hell that I've gone through the last year. The ordeal seems like it's been one long waking nightmare. It all began normally enough. I just recently got out of a long-term relationship and wasn't looking for anything serious. I figured that I'd give Tinder a shot. It didn't take long for me to get a few matches. I chose the hottest one and we agreed to meet a week later. The date went so well that we decided to do it again, and this became a regular thing until the fourth date. It was beginning to look as if it may grow into something more in spite of my original intentions. As the fourth date wrapped up, I invited her back to my place for a drink. She agreed and things soon got hot and heavy, as they say. We were mere seconds away from taking things all the way when she broke down. I was confused. I'm not an aggressive partner and her behavior up to that point had been very receptive. I asked what was wrong and she said that she had been assaulted by a previous boyfriend. It had been several years and she thought that she had moved past it. I felt bad for her, yet still kind of frustrated, and she got up and dressed quickly. I'll admit it was, like I said, frustrating, but there was little I could do, and I understood where she was coming from. I called her an Uber and she left me with a difficult decision to make. After a long, sleepless night, I decided to just kind of end things there. Some of you reading this may call me cruel, but I couldn't really see another option. Things appeared to just be at an impasse, you know? I wasn't going to wait around until she determined that she was ready, and I sure wasn't going to pressure her into anything, obviously. I told myself that it was for the best. I'd never wanted to jump right into another relationship so quickly. That wouldn't benefit either of us, and I broke things off as kindly as I could. That night never came up. I stressed how I'd felt I'd rushed into things too quickly, and naturally she was a bit upset, but gave no indication of actually being angry. I wished her a happy future and just bid her a goodbye. And normally, that's where it would have ended. I took a month off from dating and Tinder and all that, and when I came back, I matched with a beautiful graduate student just looking to have a good time. This is more of what I was looking for. We met for drinks and hit it off. I went home happy with a spring in my step and a gleam in my eyes, they say. And maybe 2 days passed when I got a call from a neighbor. He informed me that there were leaflets posted all around our neighborhood, calling me an attempted predator. I thought this was his idea of some sick joke, and definitely not a good one. I laughed, but he assured me that this wasn't a laughing matter. I demanded proof, and a few minutes later he came to my door with a bright yellow piece of paper, and it claimed the following. On the night of Friday, November 19th, 2021, I was invited on a dinner date with Mr. My Name. After being plied with many glasses of wine, I was pressured into joining him at his home. Although I was clearly unable to consent, Mr. My Name attempted to coax me into his bed. When I refused his advances, he became enraged and threw me onto the street in the middle of the night. Please make sure all your female friends are made aware of the danger they may face by dating this manipulative monster. I can't begin to describe the anger that I felt in that moment. It was made worse when the neighbor asked me if it was true. Of course it wasn't, but when someone asks that type of question, it's a good indication that they believe it. Rather than strangle him, I did my best to assure him it was not. And his reception was less than convincing, but I had more pressing problems at that second. I had to get all those flyers, or whatever you call them, before any more impressionable idiots saw them. I spent most of the day pulling them from light poles and bulletin boards all over town. I'm still not sure if I got them all, and I counted over 200 when all was said and done. Then, out of nowhere, I discovered that I had been banned from Tinder after someone filed a complaint against me. My life felt like it was spiraling out of control, and I was desperate to stop it any way I could. What came next was probably the biggest mistake I'd made during this entire ordeal. I worked myself into such a muddle I did the one thing I shouldn't have. I contacted her via text message to confront her. She promised to retract her claims if I agreed to meet her face to face, and I took the bait like a sucker and drove to her house. We sat down at her kitchen table where she explained how hurt she felt. I wasn't interested in hearing any of it, but I was willing to suffer to save my good name. While she did so, she kept a glass of wine close at hand. She had clearly been drinking even before I arrived. After an hour, everything appeared to be handled. As I prepared to leave, she began coming on to me, and I mean in a very obvious manner, and I almost gave in, but then I remembered our previous problem and I shut her down. She was not pleased. She hissed and walked off toward the kitchen. I figured that she was getting some more wine, and it seemed like a great time to sneak away. I was putting on my jacket when a crash came from the kitchen. I hurried in to see what the matter was and was met by a shrill screeching. She rushed towards me with a stem of a broken wine glass and stabbed me with it. She retracted the jagged stem from the wound and snarled like some freaking animal. I was in shock, and I froze for a brief moment, unsure of how to react. Then she lunged at me again, just missing, and I took off. She pursued me out to my car and pounded on it as I sped off, and I just drove straight to the hospital, calling 911 as I drove. I informed the dispatcher which hospital I could be found at if the police needed to speak to me, and sure enough, an officer arrived as I was being treated for my injury. Luckily for me, she hadn't hit any major arteries or organs or anything like that, and the cop let me know that my assailant had been arrested, but what came next was a complete surprise. I was shocked to learn that she had a previous conviction for stalking and assault, and I surmised that it was a similar situation. Monday came around, and despite what I had hoped, my attacker was given bail. She paid and was out in time for dinner. I was furious and gave the assistant DA a piece of my mind, and while I waited for the trial day to arrive, I remained in a constant state of fear. I could swear that I saw her once or twice over that period, but I was in such a frazzled state that it was possibly my imagination. She became all I thought about. My work suffered. Even in my dreams, she often took center stage. She refused several plea deals and insisted the jury would acquit her. I know it was all a stall tactic, and she was assembling all the elements that she would need to what I thought would be to disappear. And the first rumblings began during jury selection. She had not been present for the procedure. Although she wasn't required to be, it didn't bode well. Then when the trial began in earnest, her lawyer was finally forced to admit that he had lost contact with his client several weeks prior. Now today is October 28th as I write this, and she's been missing almost 2 months. I sit around wondering what my future may hold. Hopefully she's done the wise thing and is currently laying low halfway around the world, or something. On the surface, that appears to be the case. Yet for some reason, I'm not totally convinced. My former love interest is a highly successful and intelligent woman. It's largely what drew her to me from the beginning. I have a creeping suspicion that she may be focusing her vast resources into getting back at me. Whatever form that may take, I'm not really sure. Naturally, I fear she'll go to the conventional route and just end my life, likely by her own hand, maybe another stabbing. However, she is more than capable to go even further and extend my suffering indefinitely. And this is why I'm going to all the trouble to post my side of the story. I'm well aware I probably come off as a jerk in some circumstances, but I don't care. I just want a record of the truth to be available publicly should I disappear. My lawyer also has a copy in case I'm no longer around to testify on my own behalf. It's doubtless that law enforcement will eventually catch up with her at some point. I'm concerned it will be too late for me, though. So if you learn of the death or a disappearance of some unknown New York State attorney through the media, please remember what you read here.
I met this friend online the summer before the junior year of high school. I was 16. His name was Josh. We clicked instantly. Our sense of humor matched up, and we very quickly became really good friends. He was a guy, and I a girl. I held no romantic feelings, more so I had a boyfriend. When I was 16, he was 19 and had romantic feelings towards me, and he let me know 6 months into our friendship. He loved me. We didn't have a stable friendship, as he would flip out a lot and would go on extended amounts of time without talking to me. He told me that he couldn't bear to talk to me, knowing that we couldn't be together because I was dating someone else. But I know it was more of a control thing. He wanted to make me feel like I was missing something out. He really hated women. Really, really disliked women and felt most were just users. He told me that I was different, that I was the only true woman he ever met. Real red flag right there. I was young and didn't think much of it. Our friendship was online, instant messaging and FaceTiming. Now, when we stopped talking for some time, he would go to Twitter and demonize me. But when he came back, I would ignore it, as he would come back funny and nice. He had a habit of lashing out at people and making them feel crappy. Another red flag, but I thought I was special and he would never do that to me. I was leading up to my 18th birthday and he said, "When you are 18, you are sending me nudes." I brushed it off as I wasn't going to, but I did notice the dominating tone. Fast forward 2 years, I was 18 and had started going to college and had broken up with my boyfriend in October. Josh took this opportunity to say that he couldn't wait to see me and that if I didn't meet him, he would be over. I had not many feelings for him, but I decided to give it a shot as I couldn't lose him. So I bought plane tickets to where he lived. My parents to this day have no idea about this. I was going on a Friday and would be returning on Monday. I started to feel that I was in love with him and was going to meet the guy I loved. A couple of weeks before going, I started getting cold feel and started hitting off with a guy from a neighboring university. I kissed the guy a day before my flight and decided I didn't have feelings for Josh. I thought that we had been friends for 2 years and he would understand. We could still have a good time as our friendship was worth more. I was naive. When going to the airport, I was certain I didn't love him. And when I reached there, I wanted to leave and never come back. I should have listened to my gut. I saw him outside the airport. He looked malicious and different. I had seen his pictures, but he looked different. He looked creepy here. I hugged him awkwardly, got in his car. We made awkward jokes and conversations. I wished I was in my dorm. We went to his apartment, up into his room, and smoked a few weeds. I fell asleep and woke up to him spooning me and groping me. That's when I unloaded and told him that I was not interested in him in any way romantically. He cried and begged to say that I loved him, and I said that I can't, so went into the bathroom and burned some things and came back normal and played games on his computer. The rest of the trip was just a combination of him being nice and kind to him being completely evil. Here are some of the things he did, or he said he did to me. He talked about me dying, making me sleep in his car, served me spaghetti with moldy sauce, farting on me when I was sleeping, telling my parents I was with him, calling me an idiot, telling me to shut up when I tried to speak, threatened to make me miss my flight and drop me in the middle of nowhere. He kept feeling me up in bed, and when I resisted, he said I wanted it too. When he said these things, I kept my cool and calm, but I was really scared and just wanted to get out of there. It is for 8 p.m., so at 11 a.m. he leaves, and at that time I pack and decide to go to the nearest shopping plaza and take an Uber from there. I ran and was at the end of the street feeling free when 2 arms wrapped around me from behind. He was hugging me. He mumbled something and ran back to his apartment. I ran to the shopping plaza and got an Uber, feeling finally free. I stayed at the airport for 8 hours with nothing to do, but it was better than staying at his place. When I got back, I blocked him from every social media, even LinkedIn. He still tried to contact me for the past 4 months, but luckily I didn't tell him my address. I hope I never meet him again.